And all through my coffee break. We're doing this again. Again. I'm doing it again. Here I am. Here I am. So. Love me some Aretha. Love Aretha. So, first of all, I gotta be careful when it's good music. My ADD kicks in, and I just have to like sing and dance and all the things. But first, happiest of birthdays today to my beautiful mother. My mom is 59 today. 59. She's just a baby. She's just a baby. She had me when she was 16, and which I'm pretty sure I've mentioned. If you're watching this live today, I'm gonna just fix a couple things here. I'm actually doing it through a different platform, so I'm not gonna see comments. I'm not gonna see who hops on here. Which can go really well or really bad. But I think at this point we would expect nothing different from me. So, happy birthday, Mom. We started her birthday celebrations last night. She came to my house and we had wine and we ate and drank and sang and danced and all the things. And what a special night for me, because sun in the sky. Come on, Nina. My dogs are walking through here also, guys. So if you randomly see a pup pop up, don't mind them. Charlie's trying to get me to throw the ball. So anyhow, we started her birthday celebrations yesterday, which was really special for me because it was the first time in my life that my mother and I had a night like that together, just she and I, just hanging out and just existing as two women in this world together, not worried about anything other than our company and whatever the hell it is we wanted to talk about. Which I'm sure some of you are like, how's that possible, right? You're 42, your mom's 59. A lot of you know part of my story. I was raised by my great aunt and uncle, and forever grateful for them. They took my brothers and I in when I was 10. But prior to that, I kind of went around from different family member to different family member because my mom was on a wild path in life for a lot of different reasons. You know, as I've previously mentioned, the death of her mother and how brutal that was and all the things that launched my mom in the direction that she went in. Which is a perfect example of the difference between surviving and thriving, because my mom's a very loving person and a very giving person. She will literally give you everything, the shirt off her back. She feels bad for everybody, everything. She can be crazy like the rest of us, right? So it was just a really special night for me. But with that being said, since my last podcast, it was the first time I had had some wine, and needless to say, we were up till like 1 or 2 this morning, laughing and dancing all in my kitchen, probably tormenting my neighbors. It's totally fine. So I'm tired today. But with that being said, no better day to do my podcast than on my mother's birthday. I had actually wanted to record our conversation last night and then air that tonight. But I ended up just being present in the moment, and it brought an amazing set of gifts, emotionally and mentally, that are way more valuable than trying to record for the podcast. But with that being said, my mom is actually going to be my first guest on the podcast because she was my first experience with parenting. And obviously, as a 42-year-old woman of 3 teenage boys, parenting is a very large part of my life. And being that my mom was wild, my parenting life started when I was very young, looking over my little brothers and going from there. So my mom will be my first guest. I'm thinking we're gonna do that next week, but I will keep you posted as I make my posts. And with that, you know how we like to start, and what a beautiful day to do it. Thank you, God, for all I've had, all I have, and all I have yet to receive. I am open to receive your abundance in love, clarity, peace, forgiveness, empathy, protection, and of course, your divine timing. What a gift. What a gift, what a gift, what a gift. Thank you, God. Thank you, God, for last night, for today, for giving me the whatever it is that got my butt on here for my 4th podcast, my 3rd live one, if this is even panning out the way it's supposed to, because I wish I could say I checked it, but I didn't. So here we are. We're in my living room. I have my coffee, which is my favorite thing anyways. I hope you guys have yours, or your wine, or your water, or whatever the hell it is you need to drink tonight, for whatever reason. Not here to judge, not here to do anything other than to give you a space to hear whatever message is coming. And I know there's a lot of different mixed emotions and feelings about the way I communicate, as we touched on in my last one, in regard to cussing and all the things. And I have been very open about my opinions on the matter. And you don't have to agree with them. You don't have to like them. You don't even have to listen to them. This is my space to create my community, and whoever needs to hear whatever message I'm conveying, perhaps about my own insanity, perhaps about things that can help you navigate your life. But this is my community, and to me, what that means is it's people of a like mind. Some days I cuss. Some days I cuss a lot. Some days I don't cuss at all. Again, for me, I think it's very much linked to my passion in the moment. In fact, usually if I'm upset, I'm not cussing the same way. So if my cussing does bother you, or your question is, hey, Leslie, how can you cuss and talk about God in the same sentence? Because I've actually received that one a few times now. If that is your question, my suggestion to you is, 1, to refer back to the multiple times I've addressed this topic, or 2, pray to your God, and I would start there. The rest will follow suit. Will I cuss in this podcast? I don't know. I've gotten messages from people saying, well, my teenager is watching you. And I appreciate you bringing that type of awareness to me. I am well aware as to the effect that my words might have on the people who are watching this. And I can also let you know that as much as we love to believe that our teenagers are pure and all the things, and they probably are, I can assure you they all know cuss words. And I can assure you they know probably more than I do, because unfortunately they live in a world where they grew up with social media and the internet that exposes them to so much, even when we try to shield them to it. So of course, it's not about contributing to that. However, it's also not about condemning our children for different forms of self-expression. Rather than condemning, I like to give them a space that lets them know, hey, maybe you shouldn't be saying that, or whatever the argument or lesson may be, but giving them a space that allows them to speak freely to you. I'm very open with my children. So again, not to sit and dwell on it, but apparently my cussing has been a very troublesome thing for people, because I literally get messages about it probably every other day, almost every day. So with that being said, I'm not here to filter how I communicate. Perhaps my forms of communication will evolve, but that's where it's at right now in my life. So enough of that. If anybody happens to come across anybody who comments on my cussing, refer them back to a couple of my posts, or perhaps my third podcast, which is also on YouTube now. And of course, there's this one as well. So today, obviously, I wanted to talk about deflection and projection and the hidden battles in our minds and how we can navigate those things. Because deflection and projection play a really big part in how we develop our self-awareness, how we take responsibility for our actions, and how we hold others accountable for theirs, which ultimately equates to our personal boundaries and other people's boundaries, and respecting our own as well as theirs. So have you ever found yourself, let me adjust this here, I'm sorry guys. So have you ever found yourself in an argument with someone only to realize that what's being said has nothing to do with you or even the topic at hand? Or worse, maybe they're making it about something else entirely, or maybe saying something about you that, had nothing to do with you, but everything to do with what you were bringing up to them. Deflection, projection, we're going to dive into the difference. Sorry, I'm learning this app, so excuse all my pauses and all the things. But we're going to talk about the difference between deflection and projection, but we're also going to discuss why it's so crucial for your self-awareness and your healing and your personal growth. Of course, diving into what they are to begin with, but also how these defense mechanisms affect our relationships in multiple areas of our life: business, family, romantic, and then of course how to navigate them to find emotional balance, because that's the whole point, right? If you saw my post earlier with the Persian proverb about the rose and he who wants a rose has to appreciate the thorn, that is life. That is what we're trying to do. We're trying to find the emotional balance between our light and our shadow sides, which isn't easy. And I'm trying to adjust the volume. I don't know how it is on your guys' end, and I'll know once this thing is done and I download the video But hopefully I'm not like screaming in your ear, and hopefully I'm not too quiet. So how this conversation relates to self-discovery, spiritual growth, and personal transformation is going to largely be determined by how you receive the message, where you are in your journey, and just how much you're willing to look inward. And looking inward is not easy. It's not easy to stop and to put yourself in a position that you're able to say, you know what, maybe I'm the one who's just freaking screwed up, or maybe that person was 100% right and I'm 100% wrong. Not easy to do that, right? Because of a couple of reasons. One, you're having to look inward, but two, you're also having to say, oh, maybe the other person was right. As if. I'm a Sagittarius. We won't get into that yet. Just kidding. Kind of. So, what is deflection? The best way to understand any emotion, any action, is to define it. Always define it. And my dad in California works with different mental health things in his career. And he told me that he gives them words to define, and then to learn how to use it effectively while communicating. And when we were talking about it, I told him how amazing that is, right? Because you're not only expanding their vocabulary, but you're actually giving them a tool and teaching them how to use it. So imagine if we did the same thing with emotions. Imagine if we taught our kids, hey, here's the word anger. And we kind of know what it means. Or do we? The best way to find out is to define it, understand where it comes from, right? Is it a primary emotion, secondary emotion, all of those things? So whenever we dive into these conversations, deflection, projection, we'll define it so that we have a better understanding. So deflection is a defense mechanism where someone avoids responsibility or accountability by shifting the focus away from them to either you or something else. Common examples of how people do that is changing the subject when they're confronted about something, making jokes to avoid the more serious conversation, which is probably rooted in emotion, or of course their own actions, blaming external factors instead of looking inward, like, oh, I wouldn't have bitch slapped you, but I'm just kidding. But no, all joking aside, I wouldn't have bitch slapped you if you hadn't said that word, right? Deflecting. And yeah, I said bitch slapping. I don't know about you guys, but I haven't bitch slapped somebody in a long time. Some days, though. Some days. Good old-fashioned throat punch. Haven't done that either. Everybody jokes. I always say I'm going to throat punch everybody, and especially my kids, but we have yet to see you do it. All fun and games till I do. So anyhow, blaming external factors instead of looking inward, redirecting your attention to another person's flaws. All of those are forms of deflection. And it's important to understand that so that when somebody is doing it to you, you're aware, because that helps you to keep the conversation on track. Because it's those methods of deflection that get us trapped in that like drama triangle that we previously discussed, and also keeps us trapped in emotional loops, so then we don't even think clearly. There's actually this really funny video that I sent to a couple of people where if you hear someone freaking out in the background, my dog's looking out the glass at another dog right now and she's not happy. But this kid comes into the room to his mom and he's like, Mom. And she's like, what? And he says, can I go wherever? And she's like, no, you can't. It's storming. And he's like, what? And she's like repeating herself. And he's like, what? And he keeps saying what, to the point where now all of a sudden she's just fucking totally lost. And she's like, what? What are you doing? And she starts losing her shit, right? She starts going like totally crazy. So it's important to understand deflection so that you don't get wrapped into a situation like that where you don't even know what the hell is happening anymore in the conversation. You don't even know what the point of the conversation was to begin with, and you damn sure don't remember what the last sentence you said was. So it helps you navigate those conversations, but it's also important because then you can make sure that you're not using those. And the danger of deflection is it prevents self-awareness, which defeats the whole purpose of the human experience, right? The whole reason we're freaking here is for self-awareness, which most days I'm all about. Other days I'm like, hey, can we turn this button off for the day? I'm a little over it. All joking aside, it also creates distance in our relationships. And it was actually a major component of what contributed to the demise of my marriage. And I wish, even though I knew to what I thought was a pretty deep degree of understanding, proved very different. I actually didn't really understand it to the depth that I needed to. So it creates distance in our relationships. And when I say marriage, I'm referring to both my marriages. Yes, I've been married twice. Again, 3 times a charm or 3 strikes I'm out. I'm not sure yet. We'll find out. It also stunts your personal growth. And again, back to self-awareness. Self-awareness contributes to our personal growth. It's the whole reason we're here. If you're not growing, you're freaking dying. So if you're in a situation where a partner, you're being called out for not communicating well, or you're calling your partner out for not communicating well, and they're responding with, well, you're always on your phone too, instead of acknowledging the issue, even though that's not a huge deflection, right? It's not that it's necessarily this like horrible thing, but it is, because it's avoiding an emotion that you're trying to process in that moment. You may very well display the same type of behaviors. Maybe you are complaining to them that they're on their phone too much, but maybe you do the same thing and you're not aware of it. When you're in those conversations with each other, the most important thing is to, first and foremost, acknowledge the other person's feelings. Acknowledge the issue they've brought up to you. Because in our relationships, it's really quick to get caught up in that emotion and then start that tit for tat, you poked me, I'm poking you. Instead of being like, oh, you poked me, why'd you poke me? Help me to understand where this is coming from. I love you, I married you, I had children with you, or I work with you 5 days out of the week, and I really would like for us to have a healthy relationship. If my dogs start barking, Charlie, come. Coda, come. Recognize it so that you can address the situation with those people. And also, in the moment that you're addressing it, you're creating a space for them to be able to learn how to do the same thing for you, or to just be able to do that for you. So it's really important. Recognize the deflection in yourself and in others. And of course, everything starts with us. So recognize it in yourself first and foremost. And if you can do that, then it'll be easier for you to recognize it in other people. Notice when your conversations shift away from responsibility. And sometimes it's about letting them just get it all out, right? In fact, my cousin, I love you, cousin, I won't say your name, but one of my cousins called me the other day, and she had a lot going on. But as soon as I answered the phone, right, she's like, energy, emotion, just diving right into it, which is, I love that she called me for that, because she knows that I love her so much. But communicate with people, right? Do you need to vent? Say, hey, I just need to vent. Like, I don't need life advice. I don't need anything other than for you to create a space for me to release emotionally so that that person doesn't emotionally react, which is our default, and also doesn't allow you or the other person to become defensive. So ask yourself, am I avoiding something uncomfortable by deflecting? Is it an emotion that maybe I'm not good at processing and it's a common theme in my life? Like, what I realized was I didn't like anger. I didn't like dealing with anger. But what was funny is my disdain for anger, because I just wanted everyone to be happy and I just wanted butterflies and rainbows. And then when it wasn't butterflies and rainbows, because my kids were fighting or maybe my dogs were fighting, I would respond with the same emotion. I would get angry instead of, having that self-awareness to make sure that I was processing my own emotions instead of reacting to the emotion I was trying to focus on or heal or help or guide or redirect. So deflection, super important to understand, to know the definition, and to be able to identify. So the next one, projection. Oh man, good old fashioned projection. I deal with projection on a serious basis. I told you my job as a healer is to be a mirror, right? Which is also part of why I laugh at the cussing, because essentially what happens with me is, as a healer, you become a mirror for other people and what they're trying to deal with. So they project onto you. So in my experiences, what tends to be the case is men project onto me. And typically within about 15 minutes or so, I can understand where a man is coming from because of what they're projecting onto me. Men tend to project. Why? Because as a society, we've taught them not to process their emotions properly. Women tend to come for advice because we do dive inward. Not that men don't. Do not misconstrue. Ooh. But women tend to come for advice because in society we've allowed women more space to process their emotions and to dive inward and to just be vulnerable, right? We've taught our men through lots of things, societal standards and traditions and evolution and all the things. They're the hunters, they're the providers, they're the protectors. So they've had to be strong, which is amazing. And, all characteristics that I look for in a man, and I'm sure most women do. But men tend to project because they're not processing it. So projection occurs when someone unconsciously is taking their own emotions, their own fears or insecurities, and even their own attributes, and essentially attributing them to someone else. It just made me think of a friend who, the projection on me is that I look like a 12-year-old boy. When he watches this, and I know he will, he's gonna be like, "You're such a dick." It's fine. I'm not saying your name. You and I know who it is, but again, it comes from what he is processing in his life. He's an incredible human being who dives very deep, and to be honest, he knows why he does it. So it's not like he does it unknowingly, unconsciously. He is very conscious of it. I'm actually beginning to think he does it just to piss me off. It's fine. I'm working through that. Thank you. So what are some examples of projection, right? Accusing someone of being jealous when you're the one feeling insecure or jealous. That's a common one, especially in relationships, because we have so many insecurities about, oh, my husband looked at someone, or the tone of your voice, or whatever the case may be, whatever makes you insecure. So a lot of times we'll accuse someone of being jealous, even though we're dealing with our own jealousy. Calling someone controlling when you're the one struggling to let go. Again, that's you trying to control something instead of releasing. Assuming that someone dislikes you when you actually don't like yourself. That's a huge one, especially in today's world, because so many people struggle with self-love. Very common. Make sure that before you go judging or criticizing other people and saying those things out loud, that you're understanding where those words are coming from, right? So why is projection such a bad thing? Because it distorts reality, because it damages relationships, again, by assigning a false narrative onto that person, which of course changes the dynamic of a relationship, right? Because it changes the light in which we see that person. It keeps you trapped in unconscious patterns. Hello, we're trying to break through those. That's why we have things like God, things like ayahuasca, mushrooms, all the things that, are what we're trying to find ways to release those unconscious patterns, therapy, all the things. So what's a real life scenario of projection, right? I know we gave some examples, but imagine you are constantly accusing your partner of cheating when in actuality, you're the one battling those temptations, right? Understand, first of all, because we're very quick to condemn people for their quote unquote sins. When we all have our own battles, right? So your battle might be temptation or loyalty, or your battle might be judgment. Understanding that if you're accusing someone of something without, hardcore evidence and proof of those things, make sure that you yourself are not projecting your own insecurities onto your partner, onto a friend. Because once you put that kind of label on a person, it's very difficult to remove it. It's very difficult for either side to overcome it. Recognizing projection like that in yourself and others allows you to beat those recurring patterns. And some of the ways to identify that inside yourself is to say, do you keep accusing others of the same thing? Like, am I constantly accusing multiple people in my life of things? Like, whatever it may be. I don't know, whatever. Are you trustworthy? You all have your own thing. I don't have to list 900 things for you to understand. Is this about them, or is this my own fear speaking? Notice if your emotional reaction is outsized compared to maybe the situation. Being able to recognize that, like right out of the gate or very quickly thereafter, can save you and the person that you might be projecting onto a lot of heartache and long emotional conversations, or even the need to watch freaking podcasts about deflection and projection. Unless you're just signing on here to watch my lunatic antics, it's fine. So deflection and projection, they keep us stuck, right? So how these two mechanisms work together, the two people often will deflect when they don't want to face their own projections. So again, you know, like a boss who overworks their employees, but instead accuses them of being lazy when they show exhaustion, or whatever, if all of a sudden they develop patterns that maybe they didn't necessarily display on a regular basis. That is deflection and projection. The energy that we display behind deflection and projection, they both stem from different unresolved pain, insecurity, and fear. And those three things contribute so much to our lives and the drama we create. Pay attention to your pain. What caused your pain in your life? Everybody has pain. You're not alone. If you don't know how to even put your finger on it, reach out, send a message. You can totally send me a message. I love pointing out other people's pain. I'm just kidding. No, I wish I could just point out butterflies and rainbows and all the things, but I will gladly help guide you through identifying your pain or your insecurity and your fear. And the reason for that is because, you know, my freaking foot's asleep. Oh, goodness. Apparently I need to stretch, you know, get that circulation flowing. But the reason I say I would love to help you through it is not about pointing out somebody else's, you know, insecurities and things. It's actually because of that quote where they say advice is not as much for the other person as it is for us. So every single person that I get to talk to, because for whatever reason, this crazy space I've created, people feel comfortable coming to me. And I am forever grateful for that. For every person who feels like they can confide in me, for every person who says, hey, Leslie, I'm dealing with this and I don't know, you know, am I crazy? I love it because it gives me the opportunity to look inside myself. And I'm a mirror for you. I'm a mirror for the people around me. But the best part about that is that you're all a mirror for me. And when we develop that deep self-awareness like that, it gives you, go ahead, Marvin. It gives you the ability to heal your relationships in your entire life. People that you may have had, you know, issues with for decades. I mean, literal decades. And the reason why is because it allows you to meet those people exactly where they're at. Who they are as a person and where they're at. No expectation of change. Because with expectation comes disappointment, right? And that doesn't mean that someone else's actions are going to be excusable. But what it does do is it allows you to understand the situation differently. So then you can either let it go easier and move on. You can learn a new boundary for yourself. Or you can heal a relationship that maybe has been very difficult for a long time. And what a gift, because the more negative energy we convert as human beings, the higher we raise our vibration, which is part of what I do is spiritual transmuting, turning negative energy into positive, which is probably why I'm able to be this, like, you know, big crackhead all the time, because I do get negative energy. I do have those negative thoughts. I don't wake up every morning like, oh, the whole world is so beautiful. I do wake up that way a lot of times, but not every morning. I'm really good, though, at choosing happiness. Really good at it. And essentially what happens is I address my own emotions, but I try to understand where that emotion is coming from, whether it's from confusion or fear, anxiety, whatever it is, stress, too much. If you know me, I overload my plate at all times, Not because I can't handle downtime. I love my downtime. I love to just sit and dance around my house, whatever. I load my plate up because I have a very deep understanding of how short life is. And I have so many things I want to accomplish, so many things I want to do, so many things I want to give to the people around me in my life, so many things I wish I could go back and do different. But even that doesn't come from a place of regret for me. It comes from a place of understanding the decisions I made while trying to survive and the decisions that I make now while thriving. And I can assure you that I am the furthest thing from perfect. If you didn't hear me drop F-bombs, I can do it for you to help remind you. I am not perfect. I am the furthest thing from it. I am not a saint. I mean, I might be God's favorite. I don't know. You'd have to ask him. I mean, I know what he tells me, but, take it up with him. All joking aside, though, happiness is a choice, and it's a choice that I make every single day. And sometimes I have to make it very quickly when I wake up. Sometimes I might have to do something to help burn some of that energy to choose it. Other times, I wake up on cloud 9 like a crackhead who just is full of God's lightning. This morning, I should not have woken up like a crackhead because I drank wine with my mom till 2 a.m. But I did. I woke up at 6 something this morning, and it was like this burst of immense energy. I literally was like, I have to run or I might explode. And I was just so happy. Threw on my running shoes and literally sprinted out 1.5 miles in less than 15 minutes and got back home okay, I got that out. Now let me focus on the tasks at hand because, again, I got a job. But happiness is a choice. And so learning to navigate through things like deflection and projection and how to recognize those things in ourselves and developing immense self-awareness so that every person we talk to becomes a valuable lesson for us transforms that process for you, and it makes it easier to choose happiness. It makes it easier to process the difficult things in life. And on top of that, I believe it gives you a deeper gratitude for everything in life. So understand deflection and projection so you can create healthy cycles instead of toxic cycles, so that you have marriages that are flourishing and thriving, not surviving and failing, friendships that are based on communication, not miscommunication and false accusations, just relationships that are safe spaces instead of battlefields. Geez, the world has enough that we have to battle. Your relationships should not be that. People struggle with personal evolution because they don't face their own reflection. If that's you, go sit in front of a mirror. Literally, go sit in front of a mirror and just stare at your own face for a while. And then get a dry erase marker. Can't tell you how many times I've done this. If you come in my house, you will see words written on all of my mirrors. My kids are like, what's wrong with you? Why are you so weird? Sit in front of a mirror, literally, and just look at yourself. Do the shadow work, okay? So navigating deflection and projection to find balance. Step 1, radical self-awareness. What's another way to do that other than staring at your own face in a mirror? Write it down. Write down your emotional triggers and the responses that accompany those. Do a meditation, okay, or prayer, however you want to refer to it is up to you. But observe your thoughts without attachment and without judgment. Don't beat yourself up like, oh, you're such a horrible person, or, oh, why do you always fuck up? Because you're a human being. That's what we're here to do. It's not an issue. that you have those thoughts. It's not an issue that you keep screwing up. The issue is when it becomes a repetitive behavior, right? Do the shadow work. Ask, what am I avoiding? What is it I don't want to address inside myself, inside other people? Own your stuff. Own your shit, bitches. Own it. If someone calls you out, pause before you react. Pause. Take a breath. All emotions are valid. Maybe you don't think that person should have responded out of anger, but they did, and they're entitled to that. Doesn't mean you have to respond or reciprocate with anger. Just pause. Ask, is there truth in what they're saying? Practice saying, I don't like saying this one either, don't worry. You might be right. Let me think about that. As if. I don't know if I've ever had to use that statement personally. I'm just kidding. Of course, I have to use it all the time. But break that cycle, right? Practice saying, you might be right. Let me think about it. Don't be afraid to circle back to things. Not everything has to be dealt with right then and there. We are definitely beings who are addicted to immediate gratification, courtesy of things like our cell phones, right? That bittersweet relationship. If you're anything like me, I love my cell phone, mostly because it's a source of music. And then, of course, keeps me in touch with people I love. And it's like all information at my fingertips. But our cell phones have also created a major sense of urgency, which creates a sense of entitlement. And, of course, immediate gratification addictions. So recognize that, pause, and don't be so quick to have to resolve everything immediately. Break that cycle in yourself and in your relationships. And instead of deflecting, engage. Say, okay, I see what you're saying. Let me reflect on it. Let me take an hour. Let me take a day. The key to that is do not sweep it under a rug, because your little grain of dirt becomes a mountain before you know it. So if you say, I see what you're saying, let me reflect on that, show yourself respect and show the other person respect by genuinely circling back to it. Don't just, dismiss it and try to sweep it under a rug. And instead of projecting your own feelings, say, I feel insecure right now, and I don't want to place that on you. I don't want to project my insecurities onto you. Can we stop so I can process what I'm feeling insecure about? And then I can answer your question better, or I can address your emotions better. Have those deeper conversations instead of assigning blame. So, step 4, I don't even know if I said step 3, step 2. I'm sure you guys can figure it out by listening. But step 4, I think, building emotional balance. Recognize that light and shadow exist within all of us. There is no such thing as a perfect person. And if you're like me, and you're oh so close to it, by no choice of your own, simply just when you were born, recognize that you're full of shit and that the light and the shadow exist in all of us, because it's that recognition that allows us to have compassion for other people as we address or interact with their light and shadow, which we do anytime we interact with anybody. And if you don't want to do that, stay home. Don't leave your house. Also positive. Just kidding. Get out. Interact with people. That's how you learn. Accept that growth requires discomfort. In order to change, you have to be uncomfortable. Okay? Oh, actually, it just dawned on me. One of my siblings sent me this story the other day on Instagram, and it was this older gentleman telling the story about how a lobster grows. And essentially he's like, I don't give a shit how a lobster grows. But this is how a lobster grows. And basically, to sum it up very quickly, the lobster is a soft creature, grows a shell. Eventually the shell becomes uncomfortable. It sheds that shell and goes and hides under a rock till it grows another one. And then once it outgrows that one, because it's gotten so tight and it's uncomfortable, it sheds that and it goes and hides, and it does that until it's however big it's going to be, right? It's through discomfort that we move into a growth state. So make yourself uncomfortable. Step out of your comfort zone. Grow. Live life. Make mistakes. But more importantly, learn from them. Because that's when you start to cultivate that emotional resilience through understanding your actions and self-compassion. And self-compassion is very difficult. We are our own worst critics. So, summary of what we've talked about. I'm on a summary kick because for work, every time I go to these events, I have to do summaries. And what I have found is it's very good at helping me to bring order to my experience, to my thoughts. So summary of deflection versus projection is deflection is avoiding responsibility. Projection is attributing our or your emotions to other people. And I say our, let me enunciate my letters better. Both are rooted in unhealed wounds and typically things we don't want to address inside ourselves. Emotions we're afraid of processing. Find balance between the light and the shadow. But finding balance requires self-awareness, accountability, and emotional intelligence. Self-awareness, accountability, and emotional intelligence. And if you're a woman, we teach those things to our kids, so it's really important for us to have them. And if you're a man and you have those things, just know it's very sexy to a woman. Teach them to your children so that your children can grow up to be these amazing human beings, better than us, right? So ask yourselves today, when we finish this, where have you been deflecting or projecting in your life? And what's one thing you can do this week to break that cycle? Feel free to leave comments on my Facebook page about those things, about where you've been screwing up your life, and what's one thing you can do this week to break that cycle. I would love, absolutely love for everyone to do that, because again, you're going to offer a tool that maybe somebody else doesn't even think about, and who doesn't need more tools in their arsenal. So again, please feel free to share it on my page, send me a message, go to Soulshine Mind Podcast on Instagram or Facebook, leave your comments. You know the routine, all the things I don't do enough of promoting this. I'm getting there, people, I'm getting there. I'm moving like molasses, I know. But here I am, my fourth one. Cut me some slack, give me some credit. And again, if you missed it tonight on Facebook, if this even aired properly, look for the replay on YouTube. I usually get it loaded onto YouTube the next day. And, oh, P.S. Somebody told me that Spiritual Gangsters is taken, which I'm really disappointed about, because I genuinely had never heard of that clothing company. Never heard of it. First of all, I love that, and I'm so jealous, because I came up with the term on my own in Colombia, which is why I was so proud of it. And then to find out it's already taken for a clothing company, I am definitely jealous. However, I love that, and now I really need to get some of their clothes. because I want to be a spiritual gangster. So, as always, keep shining. Keep radiating your light. Dance. Don't stop dancing. Choose happiness. Keep growing. And remember, your greatest power is in your willingness to see yourself clearly. It's in your willingness to see yourself clearly. I wish you luck the rest of the week as you figure out those tools and as you continue to navigate this journey called life, and sending you all love and light and happiness and all the things. And most importantly, sending you all God's divine protection as you navigate through this incredible journey. Also a shitstorm sometimes, but also so much fun. So choose happiness, guys. Love you all. Thank you. And I hope this aired properly. If it didn't, sorry. Better luck next time. All right. I'm out.